Right. I want to tell you a story. It's a story of how Britain got here. The cost of living, the immigration debate that just won't die, everything. And the thing is, once you start looking at it chronologically, it stops looking like a series of unlucky accidents and starts looking like more of a pattern.
This is going to make you angry.
But what the honourable member is saying is that he would rather the poor were poorer.
This is the moment when the dawn breaks and the curtain goes up on a new act in our great national drama.
Every single government from Thatcher onwards solved yesterday's crisis by quietly creating tomorrow's. And somewhere along the line, the public was told a story about why their lives got harder. And it was mostly the wrong story. So let's go back to the start.
It all begins with Margaret Thatcher. She deregulates the financial markets, the Big Bang of 1986. She also introduces right to buy, letting people purchase their council houses. Sounds great on paper. Home ownership for the working people. Except the houses sold off were never replaced with new social housing at anywhere near the same rate. At the same time, British manufacturing gets gutted. Deindustrialization. Mining towns, steel towns, shipbuilding towns, entire communities lose their economic reason for existing almost overnight.
20,000 jobs have been lost in Britain's coal industry in the past year. Another 20,000 are expected to go in the next.
So, by the end of the 1980s, there are fewer social homes, fewer industrialized jobs, and an economy that is increasingly betting everything on financial services in London. Keep that in your head because it's a seed of two problems we're still living with: the housing shortage and also the fact that the UK economy became so dependent on finance that when finance broke in 2008, everything broke with it. New Labour comes in on the back of that finance-led boom Thatcher enabled. The economy is genuinely doing well. EU enlargement in 2004 brings a wave of migration from countries like Poland, and it fills real labour shortages, helping the economy keep growing. Research on this period suggests EU migrants are a net positive, as they contribute far more through taxes than they took out in benefits. And yet, this is when you see the tabloids and right-wing politicians ramp up the hostile coverage of Eastern European migrants specifically. The economic story and the media story are already diverging.
The global financial crisis has shaken our economy to its foundations, and all across Britain, we're feeling the impact.
The 2008 financial crash hits. Gordon Brown is Prime Minister alongside Chancellor Alistair Darling. The Treasury launches a rescue plan to save the failing financial sector, which likely stopped a full systemic collapse. But I won't get into details because I don't need to. Politically, it doesn't matter. People feel the effects. Job losses, frozen wages, uncertainty, and a lot of that anger gets pointed towards immigrants and not the banks.
So many foreigners coming over and taking our jobs. I know it's not just all them foreigners, because I know some of the foreigners are doctors and some of them foreigners can save our lives. There are some foreigners that are coming over and taking our jobs, and not even working.
This is a huge part of why Labour loses the general election in 2010.
Here he is, our new Prime Minister.
The Tories come in and implement austerity, deep cuts to public services. And austerity does something specific. It deepens inequality and it strips away the exact services people rely on. The NHS, local councils, legal aid, youth services. When people are competing for shrinking resources, scapegoating gets easier.
You want me to be completely honest?
Yeah.
I think because of all the foreigners. I know people don't like it, but I've never had trouble getting a job before.
There's not enough to go around because there's not enough to go around because of them. Instead of, there's not enough to go around because our government chose to cut it. This is the soil Brexit grows out of.
Well, at 20 minutes to 5, we can now say the decision taken in 1975 by this country to join the common market has been reversed by this referendum to leave the EU.
Nigel Farage, then leader of the Brexit Party, and Boris Johnson, angling for the Tory leadership, championed the Leave campaign. Immigration control is a central pitch. Leave wins in 2016. 3 years later, Boris becomes Prime Minister.
And yes, they will have an overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate by January the 31st.
Then he runs straight into reality. Brexit and COVID together create serious labor shortages. To fill these gaps, his government opens new visa routes for immigrants from non-EU countries. And workers on these routes are statistically more likely to bring dependents than EU workers were under free movement. Also, and this doesn't get talked about enough, Brexit means leaving the Dublin regulation, which had been a core mechanism of how the UK's asylum system worked with the rest of Europe. Pull that piece out and the whole system starts to strain. And economically, this wasn't free. The OBR, the government's own independent forecaster, estimates Brexit will reduce long-run UK productivity by around 4%. Other academic estimates put the GDP even higher, in the 5 to 9% range. Either way, it's a permanent drag layered on top of everything else already squeezing people's wages.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Mass layoffs, furlough schemes, the Bank of England effectively printing money so the government can fund the massive jump in public spending. Necessary at the time, but it's a big part of why inflation then goes through the roof.
This is BBC News. I'm Lucy Hawkins. Our top stories. Russia launches a full-scale attack on Ukraine from multiple directions.
And just as the economy is trying to recover, Russia invades Ukraine in February of 2022. Britain doesn't import much energy directly from Russia, but Russia is one of the world's biggest oil and gas exporters, so global energy prices spike anyway. And the off-jump price cap on household energy bills jumps to 54% in April of 2022 alone, then was on track to jump another 80% that October before the government stepped in with support. Layer that on top of the money already sloshing around from COVID spending, and you get the sharpest inflation spike Britain's seen in decades.
Here in the UK, the Home Office has been accused of wasting billions of pounds on hotels for asylum seekers over the last 6 years.
Small boat crossings rise sharply. The asylum backlog balloons, partly because Brexit disrupted the Dublin-era system, partly because processing itself effectively grinds to a near halt under the Tories. To house the backlog, the government signs private contracts with hotel companies who start profiting massively.
Anyone entering the UK illegally may now be relocated to Rwanda.
Then the Rwanda scheme. Enormously expensive, and it barely gets off the ground before it's scrapped. Meanwhile, net migration, including work visas, student visas, dependents, hits close to 1 million in the year ending March 2023. That's the number that dominates headlines for the next few years.
Almost 1 million people, that is the number that is estimated, the top end, 1 million people additional to this country in net migration.
Labour wins the 2024 general election, and immigration numbers actually start falling, largely because of restrictions the Conservatives brought in before losing power, like putting limitations on dependents. Labour continues in the same direction. New rules in a white paper aiming to restrict immigration further still.
These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers.
We finally arrived to the present, 2026, and this is where it almost gets absurd. Asylum hotels have fallen from a peak of around 400 down to 185. The Home Office says that's down to increased removals and housing people in alternative sites like military barracks instead. Small boat crossings are down too, around 41% lower in the first half of 2026 compared to the same period last year. Numbers are falling on basically every measure. And yet, public discourse is more obsessed with immigration than ever.
There's too many people coming so rapidly to allow for integration, and you can clearly see it just in the way that people are speaking. Accents are changing, dialects are changing, crime is on the rise.
Actually, most crime, especially violent crime, is on a 30-year decline. In recent years, the narrative has expanded from simply immigrants are stealing our jobs to immigrants are making us unsafe. That narrative alone has been incredibly powerful in influencing people against immigration. Meanwhile, here's what's actually happening in people's wallets. Inflation's at 3.3% as of May 2026, moderated from the 2022 peak, but that doesn't mean prices came down. It means they're still climbing, just slower. Wages grew 3.6%, so on paper, that's ahead of inflation, except once you actually account for it, real purchasing power only grew about 0.4%. The average household is now spending roughly £3,200 more a year than before the 2022 2021 surge started. That's not a blip. That's a permanent step up in the cost of living that wages never caught up to. But even the public can't agree on who to blame. One recent poll found 29% blame the post-2010 Conservative governments, 24% blame the current Labour government, and a third say both are equally responsible. Nobody thinks it's one villain, which is honestly closer to the truth than most of the coverage.
Look, we've got to ask ourselves what kind of country we want to live in, and when we ask ourselves why, for example, the vast majority of this country think immigration is too high, the vast majority of this country think this country's not working for them anymore.
So, falling immigration, rising obsession, flat wages. That's not a coincidence. That's a story someone's choosing to tell. But why? Because for nearly 50 years now, Britain has run on privatization and deregulation that concentrated wealth upward. And that created exactly the kind of inequality that makes scapegoating easy. 14 years of Tory austerity deepened it. COVID then transferred a huge amount of wealth from working people to the top 1% on top of everything else. Every government since Thatcher, Labour included, has continued that same basic direction. And Blair's government, without necessarily meaning to, helped set up the exact conditions the far right would later exploit.
The British public have been told for decades that immigration is responsible for their economic decline, and politicians come in making empty promises claiming that they're going to be the ones to decrease immigration. But it barely matters when they do, because when they are successful, like right now, the story still persists. Even this Labour government is sticking to the same script. Here's what they won't say out loud. Immigration is not the primary reason you have less money in your pocket. It's not the primary reason that wages have stagnated. It's not the primary reason that housing has become unaffordable and jobs have disappeared. Those things are the direct result of 40-plus years of choices. Deregulation, sold-off housing stock never replaced, a financial crisis the public paid for, a decade of austerity, and a pandemic that moved wealth further upward, not down. They won't tell you that, because telling the truth means admitting that they and the system they represent have been benefiting from all of it, at the expense of you, the British taxpayer.